All right. Okay, let's jump in and get started with the session. First of all, again, this is a getting started with Langdock session. I know there's also probably a bunch of people who have never even heard about Langdock or maybe are completely new to the topic. Maybe you don't even have a Langdock account yet. Let's have a quick look at what we do and what Langdock is and how you can also follow along if this is your first time ever using the platform. If you would like to follow along and just open it up, you can go to the website langdock.com and then you will land on our homepage. And from here, you can see on the top right of the screen, there's a sign-in button. You can click that and that will bring you to the Langdock login page. There you can log in with your email address or whatever your company has set up. So it might be also your Microsoft account, Google account. Just use that button to follow along. Or if you want, you can also type app.langdock.com into your browser at the top, and that will also directly bring you to the login page. That may be upfront. One quick sentence about what Langdock is and what we do as a company. We are a Berlin-based startup or scale-up now, which we work with by now over 10,000, by now almost 13,000 companies use our tool, our platform, which is, we'll get to it, what it is and what it does for you in a second, but it essentially gives you an ability to use AI in a secure way. And all of the data, everything you upload, everything you do in the platform stays private. It's not used for any training, for any models. You can decide if you want to share things with your team or collaborate with your team on certain things. But generally, our platform is just a secure way to use AI without any model training, without any data leaving the platform. And that's the whole idea behind Langdock and why it was also founded. Without further ado, let's jump into Langdock. So now you can see I jumped to the website app.langdock.com, which is our application. And after I log in, this will be the first screen that you see. And also let me make this a bit bigger so it's also more visible for everybody here in the session. What do you see on the screen? And what is basically happening here? I probably, if I can quickly refresh also the Q&A if there's any questions that came up. Okay, I think it looks still good. So what you see on the screen here, basically, if you've used any type of AI tool or tried any kind of AI tool in your personal life, for example, ChatGPT or Claude from Anthropic, they all have a very similar design or very similar layout. They come down to this one principle of having a chat input where you can type text into and then submit that text and get a response back from an AI. So the AI model behind reads your message that comes in. So if I say, how are you doing? There is an AI model that thinks, hey, maybe the person is actually trying to chat with me, and then will say, I'm doing well, thanks for asking, ready to help with whatever is on your mind. That's basically the whole tricky part about getting started also is that you need to understand the whole idea of this platform is that you have a chatbot that, in a very simple case, it's a chatbot where you can put questions or tasks and to-dos inside, and then an AI model, which is sitting behind, will answer or will do a certain to-do that you give it, or that you are giving it. And today, of course, we also get into a bunch of examples of actual work tasks that also I had to prepare for the session today. And I will walk you through the different features and the different things that might be interesting to know of in order to get you to a certain result and a certain outcome. Because of course, in the end, it's more about I want to do whatever I have on my table today or my week I have to do. I want to do it a bit faster. I want to maybe do it with a higher quality standard. And just should feel a bit more seamless. And the cool part is, with these AI models these days, they're very good at generating also text. And of course, a lot of work that we do in a business context is surrounded by text. So writing documents, writing emails, working also with spreadsheets, which in the end is also a form of generating text or working with text. And that is what these models are extremely good at. We also have image generation models in here. So also if you want to generate images or graphics, and that's also the first example I will show because that was quite funny yesterday when I was preparing the webinar, is that we can create a bunch of different images or logos directly also from the platform. And that's also very often, I see this when we do workshops and we work with or we do onboarding workshops. This is one of the most easiest things to get started with. And my idea was, when I was preparing this, that I created myself a new workspace, a new environment where I want to use Langdock in, and I said, hey, I want a new workspace icon that is a bit more friendly than the standard Langdock icon. You can see this thing came out in the end. This is what I created. And the way that I got there is that I uploaded the normal Langdock icon to the chat, including this normal logo. And I said, I'm hosting a Langdock Getting Started webinar tomorrow, and this is the workspace that I'm using it for. Can you please design a version of this logo that would fit as a workspace icon for the webinar and make it a bit playful? And what happened is then it generated, so this icon you can simply, I just dragged it in here or copy paste it. Also, you can copy images to your clipboard and paste them into the chat. So if I, for example, take a screenshot of this left sidebar and then just copy paste this back into the chat. So this is how you attach an image. Or you can, for example, also click on this plus icon on the left side and then attach files right from here. Different ways. Also, if you have already integrations connected, you can also get files from your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your Google Drive. More on that in a second. That's how I got the image here. All I did then is I just typed the prompt, as I already mentioned, inside of this chat input. And then I hit submit. And then Langdock knew, okay, my task is to generate an image, as I prompted in my instruction. And it came up with this first version, which I was not a big fan of. And I said, no, this is bad. Can you do it a bit more like Langdock, like an onboarding buddy? So then it came up with this design here in the next step. So also this is a very cool learning. This is literally the prompting that I do on a day-to-day basis that most of us do. You can really be straight up with the models. You don't have to be you don't have to be nice or explain things in a certain extended way. All you can do is just say, I don't like it. Can you make a different version of this? So now you see the second version is here. I then found this is too far off from the Langdock branding. So I thought, okay, now maybe I can teach the AI here, how does Langdock design things? What are our design standards? What are the colors that we use? What is the font that we use? And I want that to be applied to the image as well. So I said, please don't change the Langdock design colors and don't make new colors up. And then I just typed here also in the chat, here's the Langdock design colors. Please save them into a skill for any future design task to make sure that you know our colors. This is now an interesting concept because, of course, and you can see I pasted in some technical looking design colors here. These are just RGB codes or hex codes, whatever you want to call them, which contain the different color codes that we have. And this is an interesting prompt because you will run into this very sure also when you get started and working with Langdock. I will show another example which is more related to your emails and how you can save your personal email style to Langdock. But of course, also when you generate or create documents in the future or you design also things, what's useful is that you save these instructions and you kind of make Langdock more personalized to you and how you work and how your company works. And of course, you need a way to save that somewhere because in theory, every time I open a new chat, so you can see at the top left, everything is basically like, think of it as your WhatsApp chat history or whatever other messenger you use. You chat with one person and another person and the next person. In theory, there's not too much linked between these chats. Of course, there shouldn't also be. Every chat is in theory, first of all, if you start with Langdock, a separated, completely independent chat history. So now I would ask the same prompt again and say, create a logo for my workspace in this new chat that I just generated, which is completely blank. Langdock wouldn't know or wouldn't remember. I would maybe do the same mistake over and over again. So what I did now, if I scroll up here a bit in my chat history, and by the way, you also find your chats. That's why I'm on the left sidebar. You find your chat history on the left side when you create more chats over time. So if I scroll up here again, and I now see this part of the prompt is what I, in the end, told Langdock to remember this for the future. So what Langdock did, and now this is maybe another quick just heads up that you should be aware of. You can see always the model on the left side. This is where we can see the response from the AI model, and we do have these small toggles here that you can also click on. And that's maybe interesting to be aware of, that you can click on things, because now it says read skill thought. What does that mean and what happened now? And it kind of says, I will save these design tokens as a reusable skill for future design work. And you can click into these things and see what the AI behind actually thought when it was supposed to do the task. So it says here, I need to create a skill, and then interesting technical things that if you want to go into, you can read them. It's all explained basically what these AI, how Langdock also works. You can kind of get a glimpse behind how the platform works in the background. If you want to go into it, you know that you now can click into this. And then in this next step, we can see it says created a skill and thought again. And now what happened in Langdock, there's this concept of a skill. And as the name suggests, it's just a, how should I perform a certain task if I want to cook? We had the example back in the day for a webinar that I did on where I said, if I want to cook cacio e pepe, so in theory, just pasta with cheese, there's the easy way. You can just go to your local supermarket and buy some Barilla pasta and then some cheese and then cook your pasta from there. This will get you to a cheese pasta, but also there's, of course, very highly renowned recipes of how to do this well and how to design well. I described here by giving out at least the colors that it should use. It now saved this into a skill called Langdock Brand Design System. And then I said, okay, I saved this successfully, and I use this moving forward, including the colors and the font for any new designs that I generate. And this is a very important concept to understand, because this is now where it comes down to when you start using Langdock more and more. You want to create more and more of these skills, of these things where you want to get and save things to your personal Langdock memory. Also, you can share this with your team. So if you're working in a team, you can share these with, of course, this case would be potentially something to share with the entire company, that you personalize your workspace to your work and your things of how you operate. So now in the next step, I say, now based on the skill, can you now create a new version of the logo? And then I won't show all of the versions now. I created a bunch of them, but you can now already the colors and all of the designs look way more than our actual colors. We don't have this light blue gradient, for example. It completely removed that. It went into and designed it in a way that our colors actually work. Then there were a bunch more very bad versions. And after a couple iterations, I got to a point where I have now this. And that's basically how I already got to a task. I'm not a designer myself. I have no idea how to design certain things. But after just 5, 6, 7 prompts, and now also saved myself this instruction moving forward, I will get to this design probably a lot faster. Now I have my own small workspace icon. I think that's something, if you want to play or try it out also, I think it's a very nice and lightweight task to get the feeling for the platform and also how this prompting works, because images are super dynamic, and sometimes text is very subjective to understand, but if you generate images, a very small change in your prompt will have a huge impact on what you actually see. So it gives you a good understanding and feeling for how these AI models also work under the hood, and how a change in your prompt can also impact what the result is. That's why I also like to show this first, and then we can go into a couple more text-based tasks now next, but this is essentially first good starting point. So if you have never generated an image in Langdock, this is now your time to go here, go into a new chat, and say maybe generate an image of a cat or a dog. I mean, not both, because then it would be confused, but you can say, basically send a prompt like this and then get a feeling for your first prompt. And you can say, put a Christmas hat on the dog or whatever. And then you can get your first interactions like this. It's super easy and super lightweight to get started. I'll take a quick second to read through the Q&A if there's any questions on this specific topic or on the first couple of things that I mentioned. Question from Jan in auto mode: how does Langdock decide which model to use? We'll get to that also in a second, on the different models that you can choose and what different models even mean. What is an AI model? Why is there different ones? I think that's also already quite advanced, but we will cover this in just a second. Is the skill then available in new chat as well? Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Maybe that I forgot to show this. Good question. So now when you create a skill, and let me scroll up again to where the step was where it actually generated the skill. So if I find the question here again, here it was created a skill. And again, know that these things will be collapsed just to make your chat not as bloated, because we make it always a bit nicer, but you can click on them and then you see here the skill was created, and then I can click into manage skills. And now what happened is we landed inside. This will change a bit very soon and make it a bit more easy. But for now, if you click on the left sidebar, you see this customize tab, and then you find your skills here. And now here is this file or this tile that we can click to see, okay, this is the Langdock brand design skill. And this one was generated from Langdock directly from my chat, based on the context that I had, based on the chats and the inputs that I gave, and you find the different instructions that were placed inside of here directly in this file. You can also then edit this, of course, if you would like to make changes to it. And if you want to also share this with your team, you can then click on the top 3 dots here and then also go in here and say, share this, and then you can share this with either individual people in your workspace, a group that you're part of, or if you have the, it depends on your access rights, but you can also share this with the entire workspace so everybody can benefit from this. So far for the first topic. This is already, if you follow along here and you already get started creating maybe your first skill right out of here, and I will show you again, the next one we show is more example surrounding Outlook, which is of course probably more typical. I don't know how many of that are here also design icons all day long. We do this we do this every now and then that we design icons, but of course this is maybe a good first task that you just think of something that you would like to always have an image for. Let me also look into the chat again, just if there's anything that I can quickly go into. Interesting question from Andre. Often I heard that it would be better to prompt in English instead of German. I think it's an interesting question, and there also probably is some research on. To not go into too many details, I think it doesn't make a huge difference, especially German and English should be rather similar. There's of course some niche languages out there that might result in a bit worse outputs, but in order to understand or like fully grasp this concept why different languages also produce different outputs, you would also have to then go into understanding how do these AI models under the hood actually work, and how do they produce, how is it possible that they even, I ask a question and it comes back with an answer to me. Of course, this has to be learned. I mean, AI always has to learn from something, and these companies behind, and you can see there's different companies, you always find it here on the top left, which company has produced which of these AI models with the different icons that you can see here. More on that in a second. When it is more relevant, I can show you the differences also between these models. But you need to understand that to make sure that these things exist, they need to be trained on the internet, they need to be trained on books, on websites, and a lot of the internet is English. So then, of course, if you have more training data, more examples that the AI could learn from, then the quality of the outputs will also probably be more diverse, might be a bit more interesting, more extensive in certain ways. Because again, the internet is most of the internet is English. German is also very present, so one of the top languages. So it still will be good in that sense. But to do a quick excursus on what actually happens behind the scenes, and if you want to read more about this or learn more about this, maybe I think it can just quickly also show this. What I would do in these cases, I think it's a perfect example. I would always try to just ask Langdock for an explanation and research for me on the web. And the second thing that I would encourage you, maybe if you want to follow along and try this out, is use this small microphone button here next on the bottom right of the screen, because here, if you click that, this is basically for us at Langdock, most of us speak in our instructions, our task that we want to give to an AI model, rather than typing it out. Because it's so much faster and so much easier to provide context. So provide more details that, these AI models, again, as I mentioned, they are trained on the public available internet. They're not trained on your personal desktop or your personal interactions with people. So they will not know most of the nuances that you need to make sure that an output, an email, a document, even a formula, how you write it in Excel might be specific to you and how you've done it in the past. And all of these small details, if you want to make sure the AI can help you do these tasks, they need to be provided in the moment of giving you instructions. And the best thing to do, or the best option to do that, for me, is always using it through the voice input. So again, coming back to the case that we just had, can you give me, somehow, can you research on the internet if there's a difference if I prompt an AI model in German or in English? I would just quickly like to understand how that works, what the differences are, if there's a meaningful result, or also some academic research on this topic that actually has proven or tested this on a large scale, whether I should be optimizing in one way or another, and what the impact would be, or if it's worth it even to switch between German and English. And now this took 10 seconds or 15 seconds of transcribing. If I typed this out, this would have already taken 1 minute probably, and I lost probably some thoughts in between. So this is now all I do, and then I send this prompt. And now Langdock will go ahead and we'll see a new concept probably in the way now while doing the task is web search. So because coming back to how these models work, and I mentioned now a couple of times, they are trained on the public available internet until the point where the company who trains the model says, okay, this is now finished, and I want to give it to the end users, to us, to use it, and to then do the task with this model. And they have to stop the training at some point. And the stopping point is where also the knowledge of these models is gone. So they don't, if you turn off and you don't have a web search ability, these models will not be able to know what like today's weather in Berlin is, for example. They would not know because they don't have access to that data because the training of these models has stopped a couple months back. But in Langdock, you have the ability to do web searches. And it's a bit interesting because there's no AI that does the web search in that sense. It's just the AI model says, Langdock gave me the ability to search the internet. So it kind of does something like a fake web search through a robot that it says, hey, robot, do a web search, and then if you're finished, come back to me with the results. And how do I see now what the web search was about? And because I didn't specify any websites that Langdock should go to, I just said, give me an explanation based on academic research. And of course, you want to kind of understand and also validate if the information that Langdock gave you is anywhere credible and if the sources make sense. And to check that, again, we have this concept of the toggles. So make sure that you click these if you want to go into the details. And you can see now there's these 3 globe icons. And Langdock decided to do 3 different web searches. And what it searched for, we can also see a preview of that. It searched first for academic study, multilingual, large language models. That's the scientific name of these AI models behind. And that was the first, hey, robot, go on the internet and search for that exact search query. That's same as if you would go into Google and type that into Google and then get the list of website results back. This is the website results Langdock came back, or Langdock was provided back from the robot and used for then generating the answer, which we will see in a second. And it did it 3 times. And we see all of the results that it found across the 3 different searches in this right sidebar. We can click on them, of course, and also verify what these sources actually are. You could, in theory, maybe just let me show it. I can also go in here again. And maybe that's an interesting thing to know of. What I do often, if I just want to compare 2 different prompts and see if a change in a prompt makes a difference, we have this small arrow, pencil icon here. So you can go and actually change your first prompt. And I often do this if I send a prompt and I can see already at the beginning the model is going to the wrong direction. I didn't want, it maybe got my instruction wrong. I would then already go on here and say, only search on top cited, or only search through top cited journals. Okay, maybe let's see if this already makes a difference. We'll go into and see what the results are. I wouldn't want to specify it more so we can see at least some differences already in the. Okay, now we can see a difference. It knows a top cited journal, for example, is Nature. So now nature.com, it went into searching specifically on the Nature website for any references that start somewhere. We can't see the full search query, but we see large language models. Probably behind there some more details. And it goes into, okay, now let me narrow this even more further down. And it then goes, again, you can see also now the Nature icon here. And cell.com, we can also then see and click into. This is also maybe an interesting one because you can see there's also the searching of information. It's basically like your Google search. You get a list of results back. But then there's also browsing. It's a different kind of robot behavior. It's then, Langdock tries to narrow down on certain subdomains, subpages of what the content is really about. So if I click now onto one of these browse, it's basically on this specific page here. So articles and then this domain, and this is specifically large language models show Dunning-Kruger-like effect in multilingual fact-checking. So it found this article from February this year, which it considered as potentially relevant for answering my question. And you see it does a bunch of checking now. So it goes really into an extensive web search. I'll collapse this now that it doesn't clutter the whole screen. But when this is done, we then get a different result back than we had in our first prompt, because we didn't add this only search through top-sided journals. But this is a very important concept to understand. You don't really need to remember a prompting formula. The most important thing is that a sentence in your prompt can change the output, but just describe the sentence in the most natural way that you would do. And just use the voice input always if you can, because then you're way faster providing that important context. Also how you personally maybe would do the web search instead of or how you did it maybe previously. And then Langdock knows, okay, if the user did it that way before, maybe I should then also try the same approach. Now it goes in here and Langdock explains to me what it found. And then it says what research, so it says for most everyday work, do not switch to English by default, use, etc., German, English specifically. So it goes into the details here, explains to me the different evidences that it found, including links to the websites again, so I can click on them, verify where this information comes from, if it's correct. And says, hey, this is the recommendation. It puts a lot of things here. I wouldn't read for all of this. If you ask the same question now, you of course can try this out yourself. Again, a couple new concepts in here. So I want to take a second again to review the Q&A if there's any questions that came up. Because again, web search was new. We also had now the concept of a bit of prompting, how prompting can change. And maybe the last one is, I mentioned we can edit our prompt using this arrow, this pencil icon, to now see the different versions again of my results. You get this small carousel here, and I can swap between version 1 and version 2 and see what, again, also, and compare the two results that I got. And this is important, especially if you get more used to Langdock and you start experimenting more and also maybe trying out different versions of your prompts. This can be very useful if you want to get a quick comparison, also learn from how does the model behave, how does it respond to certain elements in your prompts. There's a lot of things you can get from this, and just important to know that this also exists. Let me check quickly if there's any very much upvoted questions. There's still the most one. How can I see which model Langdock used in auto mode? Hi there, does it provide a PDF editor recording later? Yeah, also there will be recording later. I saw that one was also very much upvoted. All good, one voice, one picture. Okay, not any. There's a lot of recent posts and the team is trying to keep up. If you have interest, if you've seen the Q&A interesting posts that I should maybe also cover more in detail later on, I'll take a couple of minutes also towards the end always, just upvote them also. Then I know that I can quickly filter them down, because otherwise there's so many questions, I don't know where I even would start. But a lot of good questions from what I could see. All right. Let me also jump into the next concept. Now, I can already tell you from the image generation use case is maybe the one that's a bit more, let's say, playful, but the web searching use case and also the changing of the prompts and going into web search results and then just chatting with Langdock on certain topics is something that I do personally a lot. So even if you, first of all, start using Langdock mostly for that and just a bit of more extensive research, but also the ability to personalize the research to your tone of voice, also saying, this is too complicated for me, can you maybe condense this to something more simple that I understand it more well? Because if I quickly jump into maybe this screen again, and I would say maybe there's some terms inside of this result where I'm not aware of. So for example, now at the very end, it kind of goes into terms like completeness, hallucination rate, token usage, and latency. If back in the day when I had to Google normally and I had to go on the website and I would find this explanation, I of course might also be then confused, or I might be like, oh, I don't know what these terms mean. And the cool part is now with Langdock, I would say I'm very new to the topic. I have most of the terms that you're mentioning here, like completeness, instruction adherence, hallucination rate, token usage, latency, all of that topics I have no clue about. Can you also explain those to me in a very simple it's a very simple way? You can see also I can make mistakes in my prompts, totally fine. The model will still be able to understand what I actually wanted from it. So you can now see model again is thinking how to best respond to your task, and now it goes into, hey, of course. And then it explains to me, think of an AI model like a very fast assistant or intern. You give it a task, and you judge whether the result is good, completeness, and then it goes into the explanations. I could now, of course, matter of time, I wouldn't go into all of the explanations here, but this is just very interesting to also know that you can just ask anything, basically. If it doesn't understand, at some point, maybe it goes in the wrong direction. Something to remember is that it doesn't necessarily automatically do the web search on certain topics. Especially, I've had it a couple of times where I was using, for example, Excel, and especially the German version of Excel. And I always had to say, please Google again the latest updates of the Excel version in German, and then provide me an answer. So just know that sometimes you need to nudge the model also in a certain direction. But you can do it simply by reading the output and checking, okay, does this make sense? Sometimes for Excel, it was for me often, it says, use this shortcut to achieve a certain thing, and the shortcut was completely wrong or outdated. So I had to say, look up the most recent shortcuts and then give me another answer. This is all I can do, and that's also what I do all the time. Because sometimes, it might have, as I mentioned, the training data might be just a couple months old, and maybe there's been some updates on a certain topic, and then the model doesn't know it. And still thinks it knows the latest information, but you need to nudge it a bit in the right direction. But all you need to do to nudge it is just say, hey, do a certain thing. I don't like the response. The response doesn't seem accurate. Nothing can go wrong. The model will not get mad at you. You can ask it 50 times the same question. It will still say, of course, no problem. So that's absolutely no problem. All right, let's go into one different example. A bit more, of course, also now we want to get some actual work maybe done. And one thing that, of course, is still up to today, very common use case is that, we want to kind of reply to external people, so via emails, maybe via support portal, or potentially even internal messages or longer responses to certain team internal messages, whatever it is. It's sometimes quicker, or at least it's helpful to have an AI help me write the first draft for certain emails or certain texts, rather than me sitting down and having to think, okay, how do I now best formulate this again? I don't know where to start. I can still go to the text in the end and completely rewrite it myself, but it's better to have some first draft of something rather than having to start completely from scratch. And to do this, I have a couple emails now here that I have with this person, Mara Stein. We had some exchanges in the past on they want to try Langdock out, and I will allow also that there's different ways of how you can, for example, reply to an email. If your workspace and yourself, you have integrations, Langdock can directly pull certain emails from your Outlook inbox without you having now, let's say I got this last email from Mara here with a couple different things that I should reply to. She wants a lot of things from me. I have to go in and copy paste this over into Langdock and then say I would use the voice input and paste this in with the different questions. I would maybe then go in here. What I like to do always is I go to the beginning, I hit a couple times enter or shift enter in my case, and then I start dictating my prompt at the very top. Of course, this is not, you don't need to do this. You can also just paste the email in and then go in and explain it. But I would say then, I would like to respond to question 1 like this and question 2 like this. I won't do it like this, right? This is how you can do it if you don't have integrations. This is definitely a possible way. But I'd like also now to show how you can do it using integrations, because that makes it a bit more enjoyable to also pull a lot of data. Because now if I do this, if I have 5 open emails, I have to open all 5, copy, paste, etc. It can get quite tedious. And in this case, what you can do now in Langdock and what we offer is these integrations. As the name suggests, they are basically connections to your tools. It's not, we cannot access these tools in your behalf. It's just you tell Langdock, hey, use my Outlook email connection, do something with it. I'll show how that do something looks like also when we do it in a second, and then produce a certain result, also inside of the integration potentially. How do you find different integrations that we have if you just want to explore it? We have in this Customize tab here on the side also the Integrations tab. You see all the different integrations that we offer. One of them is now Outlook email. That's the most common one that we see most people use, next to, for example, also SharePoint to get files from your SharePoint or OneDrive. And how does this now work? Now, if I have these 5 emails here in my, I put them into a folder inside of my Outlook so I can just organize them a bit better. And I say, okay, I have this last email. Langdock, please find the email and then reply to it. What you can do is just go into the chat. You can open again a new chat here and you type @Outlook. And this is a new concept again, tagging integrations, or just generally tagging things inside of Langdock using this symbol. If I just type as the first character in the chat input, you see all kinds of different things like integrations, agents, skills. We'll go a couple of them also today again, but just know that this symbol is very powerful because it lets you, basically it's your way to tell Langdock what am I supposed to work with from this chat. And now in this case, I say Outlook email. This is the one that I want to interact with. So I tag it, and now maybe just for me also to show that how do you know if it's active and actually triggered, because the reason is why we have this and why for now there will be also soon an update where you can just say go into my emails and do the following. This will work very soon. For now, we still have it in a way where you have to actively go in here and trigger Outlook email if this is the first time you're doing it. There's some workarounds. We'll get to it also when I create my personal email writing skill, how you don't have to do this anymore. But for now, this is the easiest way and the most strict way to tell Langdock now go in and work with my Outlook email. And now in this case, I would again go inside of, I'll just prompt it again to say, can you get the latest email from Mara from my CS support inbox? I think there were some open questions that I still had to reply to. So you can see now, Langdock will go into use the Outlook email connection in a second. This is how it looks. This is where you can also see it worked. It was successful. Okay, now in the first set, the search didn't work properly, but Langdock was also smart enough to figure this out in a second. We can also see what actually was searched, because now it said it didn't find any message matching Mara's sender name. So I wasn't really specific in my prompt. So Langdock actually had to try 3 times, because the more accurate your prompt is, the more specific, the better, and the less tries Langdock will need to actually search this. So now here we can see it didn't find anything in this case. It went in again and searched one more time. And then the third try, it says, I'm checking more broadly across the inbox of who this person, Mara, might be. It might be that Langdock first searched for, potentially just searched for the name Mara and it didn't find anything, but the email specifically was then needed. So now the email was found, and it says here the person is asking me for these topics, and that's all I had to do. Now in the next step, I would of course go in here and say, I'll just draft my answer also in a spoken way. That also helps already to make it quicker. Okay, can you reply to her that the technical kickoff for the pilot can be done in 2 weeks. Then for the single sign-on SSO setup, they basically can look into our Langdock documentation page. We have a documentation page. Also use the web search to just get the latest link and then put that link directly into the response. For finding the right pilot use cases, we can also do a specific workshop on that. We have a template that they can work through. The most common ones that we typically see are use cases around drafting answers to certain questions, like emails or support tools, internal IT ticketing systems. For the support model, we have a dedicated Teams channel with them, and they can always reach out to support@langdock.com. And finally, for the success criteria, of course, we aim always for 30 to 40% daily active users. So 30 to 40% of the people should be active per day in Langdock in a workspace. And I will send over the proposal in a couple of days. I have to finalize that. So draft a response to her email directly inside of my Outlook inbox. Again, now I dictated for 1 minute 13. I could really freely speak about what I would like to have in the response. I don't have to really write down sentence by sentence myself. This is a lot more, it's nicer to do it that way. And then I sent this again to Langdock, and now there will be a separate step now that the Outlook integration also can do for us, which is drafting responses. now again, it does first again the web search. We now learned what that means and how we can verify it. It now checks our documentation as I instructed it to do. And now we see draft reply to message. So I can see here, hi Mara, thanks for the update. Great to hear that you're ready to make the move. So it also picks up the context from the original message, because she in her first sentence says, we have now completed our review and would like to continue. It picks up that as a sentence. If you like that or not in your emails typically, we can get into that now in a second. But basically we can go on here and say now, hey, I would like to never have this inside of my emails, and we can just prompt that also to Langdock. So I would go actually do it now, because we learned now the concept of a skill, and of course I also would like to have a personal email writing skill. So actually go in here and just start a new chat. In the same chat, I'll start the transcription again and say, okay, a couple of things that I don't like about this email that I would like you also to save into a personal writing skill from me, that I don't have to teach you this every time you now draft new emails for me. First of all, never use these long M dashes inside of your responses. And also, I think you don't have to really restate what the first, or basically the first message of the email from my recipient or the sender is. I think we can just get to the point. You can say, just thanks for the update. Never then really include more in this, in the session or in the email that you write. Also, I think generally the email could use a couple more, a bit more formatting, just a couple simple bullet points to make the readability easier. I generally like to use that. And at the end, never sign off with a comma after the best. I just like to not have that inside of my emails. And then draft one more time and save this also as a skill for future use. So now I didn't necessarily accept the first time. I didn't even have to deny it. I can just say, hey, do it again. Now we can see Langdock is understood. Okay, I have to create a new skill for this. So it goes in and we'll start doing that in a second. And it created already the writing style draft, which I can see again when I click on manage skills or I navigate to the sidebar. Now this is my very short skill, of course. There's not much detail in here, and you probably will have to update this over time. If you notice the model doing things that you're not liking, you will add certain bullet points to the skill that make sure every time I now draft a new email, this will actually work. And now maybe just let me show you also how the reading works and also the impact of this. So I will not use the same chat because here the context is already kind of now in here, but I would rather just want to show you what the impact would be if you now go into a new chat. And again, I take Outlook email again and I say, can you find the latest email from Mara in our customer support inbox that she mentioned, and then reply with the following points to her email. So now, of course, I will not go in and do it manually, but I will just copy this previous prompt because I already prompted it once, and I go into the new chat again, and I then put in the text here and I send it. So now ideally, of course, it does both at the same time. It first looks up the email, might take a couple steps again to actually find the email in this case, but this is now of course how also I often copy things if it's needed from one chat to another one, just also maybe to demonstrate, or sometimes a long chat can also get quite messy. Maybe you had misunderstanding instructions in a very long conversation, and helps sometimes to open a new chat and just go one more time from scratch. So now we can see if it goes in here. Needs a couple tries again because I didn't improve my prompt now on where to actually look and how to properly find the person. So Langdock has to try a couple times. Now it found the message here directly. And we can see also, let me show you where the skill was read. So in the very first step, again, I can toggle this open. I can see Jan's email writing skill was now read by the model. And the reply is now being written, and it's way shorter. Maybe I don't like this still, and I have to go into the prompt again and the skill or update it. But it used not any intro sentence that I didn't want to. It used the bullet points to make the email look better. And I didn't have this comma in the end that I, just for this purpose, just quickly also prompted into it. So now I can confirm this and drafted the message into my inbox. So if I go back to Outlook, it's now right here. And it's not perfect still. I can see there's some issues. And now in case something like this happens, because sometimes models make mistakes, usually what I like to do is I take a screenshot from this, and I would go into Langdock and paste the screenshot inside of my clipboard here and say, the email came out like this, something is off with the formatting. Can you check that again? And also remember this inside of the skill that in the future it shouldn't do the same mistake here. Yeah, generally make sure the formatting always is proper. So now it will do two things. It will update the draft that I've just written, and it will also update the skill with probably the learning, the thing that it got wrong in this case, to not make the mistake again next time it creates an email. I won't show that whole flow again because I think now you already get kind of the point, because also updating a skill directly from the chat is possible. So you can always say, check my skill that I have, just make an update to it based on the feedback that I have. That's how it works. And also that's how we iterate on our own internal skills that we use. Okay, let me quickly filter because I have like 9 minutes left. So I'll quickly go into the conversations. I see a lot of upvotes, so that worked. Let me quickly, while Langdock is doing its thing, quickly read the most upvoted messages. Going to be a more advanced webinar. This one is nice, but very basic. Topic should be like understanding when to use skills agent. Yes, I think, Pavel, very good questions. It's, of course, there will be more webinars and we go into more advanced topics. Also, we have a YouTube channel where I have a bit more advanced topics already, but there will be new webinars because we, of course, this session is very, very first steps, very intro level, and a couple interesting concepts to get started with. And we have a lot of new users since the last couple of months, so this makes sense. But we have more of these sessions also coming very, very soon. Can you demonstrate use the chat inside of Excel? Yes. Very good point. Let me just quickly update the draft here and then also show you two cool things where also we just released two cool integrations where you can use Langdock integration from Langdock, but now, since very recently, you can also use Langdock directly inside of your Outlook and directly inside of your Excel, which is of course very handy if you now go into here. Now we can check already the update here is done. There's a new draft, which looks better, so I can delete the old one. But now, of course, what's new in Langdock is this Langdock integration. You can see it at the very top here. I can click on Langdock and we see I have like a mini chat directly inside of my Outlook inbox. And of course, that makes it a bit nicer also to interact in the case of Outlook with your inbox. And I can, for example, in this case, I have this email thread. One example that's very common is saying, let me also then activate this. Can you summarize the email thread for me? See what emails you're interacting with. If you don't see this, you can reach out to your workspace admins and ask them to activate the Langdock plugin for you, because the workspace admins need to click here into the admin settings and then download the apps and add-ins. If there's admins here in the session, where do you do it and activate it? In your workspace settings, you can go into integrations and then add-ins. Add-ins, and then you can see here on the bottom that there's the Excel and Outlook add-in. You have to activate them here, and then you would go back here and say install them, and then you can see there's the guide on how to do it properly. That way you can also then use Excel or Langdock directly inside of your tools, which is nice, of course. Because then you don't have to exit the tool, you can directly use it where you already work. And you can, of course, also say, okay, can you Yeah, this one didn't detect it. Can you quickly also write a follow-up email just to check if the topics have been covered? Now for Outlook, this again will also, you would do it from Langdock directly. So this is going, and also able to read your skills. So everything that you have inside of your Langdock workspace also is respected here. So the drafts won't on random, but it will actually use whatever you already created inside of Langdock also right here. And maybe one last thing is, I can't do there will be dedicated webinars also on these plugins because there's a lot to unpack and there's a lot more details to cover. Just that you have seen it once. There is also an Excel plugin, works the same way, and you install it the same way as you would do with the Outlook plugin. And here you can say, again, I need to allow my. Can you quickly create a personal finance budget tracker Excel or sample table for me, including also a small pivot table to then directly analyze the data? Just put some sample values inside, make it not too extensive. A short one is more than enough. So now in this case, while this is running, I'll come back to it in a second and explain what happened. But basically Langdock can also interact directly with Excel, which is nice. Then you can also update your formulas, work and change things, create pivot tables, diagrams, charts, all of that directly from here. You can see already now it's happening. I'll maybe also make it full screen so you can see it a bit better. So Langdock now created this table. It created the pivot table right next to it. So if that's something you do very regularly, definitely get your admins to install it. And then you can also use Langdock directly from the chat, from the sidebar, which is of course very handy if you do that a lot in your day-to-day work. Maybe while we edit, I would couple minutes left, but I think one very cool thing to also know of and be aware of course, if you use Langdock more and more over time, you will create a bunch of files, you will create a bunch of documents, and you have a lot of chats, and you need to organize them in a certain way because of course they will also be recurring. You will not, an Excel file is not once done and will be kind of coming back. You also want to find it again. Where did I store it again? We have this concept of a library, or just basically a directory file system where you can upload files that Langdock generated. And from the Langdock Excel plugin, there's one way to put things into the library. So now if I click here on the top, this book 1, because I didn't give it a name, of course I named the Excel file will not be called book 1. But now if I go back to Langdock and then go inside of my library, there should be ideally, of course, the file here somewhere. Maybe the best, perfect example of a bug that we found right live here. Let me do one more example where how I would do it here in this case for any kind of work that I do with Excel. I would go inside of the Langdock library and maybe then create a folder called Excel work. And then I have this empty folder. And now I should also see this folder right here. So now this book 1 is saved to my Excel. Okay, this worked. Good. This is the proper flow. The other one was maybe not too intended, but we found a bug. That is good. Now I have this folder in Langdock where I can upload files that I want to keep working with. So now even if I close Excel and I open a new chat, I can also decide to work with all the different Excel files that might be in that folder. And now I added a second copy of that inside of this, which is maybe not that useful. But now I can do two things. Either, of course, I can just have this place to organize my files, but also I can choose this and work also directly from Langdock with this folder. Of course, in this case, I would rather prefer to use the plugin. If you don't have the plugin yet, I can also work with the Excel file directly from Langdock, from the chat. So I can say, can you change the design of the table a bit more to like more prominent colors and also add some conditional formatting? So now what happens, I created a folder, I selected it, and I can also then go in here and make edits to the file directly from Langdock. So that's also a workaround. If you want to work with tabular files, that's how you would do it directly from the chat. So you can get your hands dirty already today if the plugin is not yet available. That will now work. And I'll show you also, make sure, and if you want to also see what files Langdock has created, you can click this small folder icon here and you see the folder icon popping up on the side. That's also useful to know of. Again, this will make updates. I'll show you the end result in just a second. Maybe just that you heard it. Again, I don't want to, we have 2 minutes left, so of course, I'll spend a couple more minutes after to go through the Q&A and answer any questions that are still open from the upvoted, and then just you can stay in, of course, if you have a couple more minutes, or of course, the recording will also be shared afterwards. Maybe one last thing before you go is you can scan this QR code. Maybe before you scan it, let me explain what it is, so you don't scan anything that is not wanted, but we have just recently, or basically yesterday, launched a 5-part onboarding email series. So it basically is just 5 emails that you receive over the course of 9 days, with each a couple interesting points of trying in Langdock. So of course today the session was already really good. You could probably already get started. But if you want to get a couple more emails with a bit more guidance also on a couple of cool prompts that we also found useful in the first couple of days, you can scan this QR code. Also, I will also send the registration for that also via email again. So if you want to forward this, or you want other people to also receive this email, you can scan this and then go in, sign up with your email address, just the same email address that you used also for work. And let me also go in here and send you the link inside of the Teams Q&A. So you can also get it from here. So now the last message I sent should be the link again. So just filter the Q&A by latest message. Then you also can click the link from there and sign up if you want, of course. And there's also the product newsletter if you would like to receive general more product updates if you're open for that. So it's 3 p.m. Let's quickly just check what happened to the table formatting. So we can see now the book 1 styled now, and you can see the design of this changed. I can click in the folder again, and now the file is also directly organized and put into this folder, which is nice because then I find anything that I changed or added with Langdock directly from here. I also can share this with colleagues. Again, they can also then see these files. You can collaborate, not real-time collaboration, but you can collaborate on the folder and the files inside of there if you share this with colleagues, which might be handy. Okay, it's already 1 minute past. This time went way too fast. I still had a couple of interesting points to cover, but I think most of the important things and the cool parts we have covered. So I will call it, I'll call it an end to the session. I think from the demand, and I already see there's still 1.1 thousand people in the session. So thanks for staying even until now, even a couple of minutes later. We'll do a couple more webinars like this. If you have ideas also for very concrete topics that you would like to cover, of course, we have a long list of a bunch of interesting things you still want to go into. But if you have ideas, also feel free to just reach out to our support. In the onboarding email series, you also get a couple more links towards the end that you can, with a couple more resources that you can check out, because we want to do more of this, and there's a lot more planned that we will do in the next couple weeks. And yeah, time is never enough, but I think this hour was already quite useful. I hope you got something out of it. If this was your first time using Langdock, of course, just keep going, just keep experimenting, give it a shot, just prompt it, use the voice input to just give it a try and see what Langdock can do for you. And if you're already more advanced and the session was maybe too basic for you, just also go and help some other colleagues that you now maybe found some 1 or 2 interesting points that you would like them to try out. But yeah, as said, we'll do a session in this recorded, so you get the recording. We'll do another session in German, and there will be more sessions on more topics also following very soon. And if you want to stay up to date with them, of course, just make sure you have your emails active and we can send you invites to these webinars.